So let me just introduce our guest speaker for today. Let me just start again. I just want to introduce our guest speaker for today. He's not a stranger to us. Last week, he was already with us, and many of you met him. Faisal Mansoor spoke about diabetes, and I think many of you agree it was a very, very informative session. And today, he's back here to talk about toxins in food. And Faisal is really the right person to do this because he and his wife, Aina, Faisal actually works with the GLC. And his wife, Aina, is a veterinarian, but for the last 15 years, they've gone on a journey of eating whole foods, going plant-based, and just, just in this whole space of wellness. They've been able to help family members just get better and reverse some of the conditions like diabetes that they have. So he's done a lot of research in this area. He is also part of an NGO that advocates sustainable food as well as healthy living. And so he's done research on this area of what is in our food and what do we need to be concerned about. So I'm just going to pass this now over to Faisal, who will be talking about toxins in food. Over to you, Faisal.
Okay, thank you very much, Terry, and a very good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very warm welcome to everyone who's joining us here. I hope everyone's staying safe wherever you are, Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei, or wherever, any parts of the world. And thank you for joining us this afternoon. So, like Terry said, I will be sharing a little bit of what I understand about what kind of toxins there are in the food and the food industry in general nowadays, and what we might look into to be more wary of when we choose the foods that we eat and when we do our shopping later on in the days to come. All right, so I'll be sharing my screen now and start the presentation. All right, I hope everyone can see this.
Yes, very clearly, Faisal.
All right, so I'd just like to start things off with a little story because I think that's where my journey all started together with my wife Aina and our family. Why we got into all this more seriously was after this not to say incident, but this situation occurred to us and happened to our family, and we dug a little deeper and deeper and deeper, and that's how we are. That's why we are here today. So what happened was my eldest son, who is now 9, about 5 years ago when he was 4 years old. I mean, like any normal family, we would be eating. I mean, we eat normal Malaysian food. I think that's quite normal for any typical Malaysian family out there, eating rice and with veggies and together. Of course, we had our fruits and we had our assortment of animal proteins as well at that time, eggs and dairy included. However, at around 4 years old, my eldest boy was starting to have these uncontrollable itching, to say the least. It was rashes, but not to say it was like a eczema, a typical eczema where you flare up everywhere around your body. So this was more of certain focus areas around his behind the elbow, behind the knee, behind all these folding areas, because it kind of like caused a lot of irritation, and he constantly had to scratch around those areas. So it became very, very uncomfortable, very, very apparent. And to some degree, I think during the night times, he would sometimes scratch himself, bleed himself scratching, right? So it was getting really, really bad and expanding slowly. However, it was focused on those regions only. So we had to go through we visited several doctors. We had several appointments with specialists, pediatricians, skin specialists, and so forth. but none really gave us a very clear answer of why it's happening. Uh, uh, and uh, and I think the typical treatment for these kind of conditions would be a steroidal kind of like topical lotion or ointment to be applied on, and it will kind of like magically subside. But I guess, of course, me and Aina being in the wellness line, we kind of understand that steroidal ointments are not the ideal thing to apply, especially to children, especially for skin, because it is something that can be absorbed by the body and absorbed by the blood and can cause other side effects as well. So we wanted to avoid steroids treatments as much as we can, although it could be beneficial for him to reduce his itchiness, but we know in the long term it won't be something that we would be the last thing that we would do for him. So we seek other advice and other alternatives. So we were looking for um, other practitioners, and we found several wellness doctors, which guided us and kind of like led us to trying out some allergy tests. And we did this allergy test. That is when we found out that our boy had some toxicity due to some heavy metals, and other factors as well, which we'll be discussing a little bit later on. And lo and behold, he was also intolerant to some foods, for instance, gluten. So he had some gluten sensitivity. He had some sensitivities to animal proteins, in particular, like eggs, dairy, and so forth. And I'll explain a little bit as we go along. But I think if this resonates with you and what you're going through with your family and your loved ones, so maybe you can relate, and do seek out more advice from uh, medical practitioners, especially wellness doctors in the field. And you can do some tests like what I've mentioned just now: allergy tests, food allergy tests, and maybe heavy metal testing as well, to kind of see whether yourself or your child has already been kind of like intoxicated in that sense. So that's how our journey started and began, and therefore we let one thing led to another, and as Terry mentioned, now we're leading a more a plant-based kind of a lifestyle, and of course complementing it with other nutritional therapies as well. All right. So let's get into the rest. So what I'll be covering today, just a disclaimer, this topic is very, very broad, very, very vast. So I'll do my best to cover as much as I can. However, if I were to do everything, it will probably be a whole day and night kind of lecture. And I don't think I want to bore you, and I don't think you would have the time to go through that as well. But I'll do my very best. If Terry did mention, you can ask some questions in the chat later on, and as much as I can, I'll try to answer them. If not, I'll try to refer to some of the doctors who are here as well. All right, so we'll go through some neurotoxins, some carcinogens, and basically some recommendations how we can start to detoxify ourselves and to achieve better health. All right, so let's start into it. Neurotoxin. So don't worry about the terminologies, but basically just to expose you what these means. Okay, neuro means refers to neurons, so that means directly anything that affects the brain. So toxins that affect the brains are called neurotoxins. And we'll start off with a very popular one. I think maybe some of you may be aware, which is artificial food colors, AFC for short. And this is a study. This is a published scientific study, which actually looked into how AFC or these artificial colors actually affect or maybe heighten ADHD. All right, so ADHD, if you're not sure what that means, is basically kind of like when your child goes into berserk mode and go all over the place and like uncontrollable. All right, so some parents may label these kids as terrible twos, or the fearsome fives or whatnot. And so these kids go hyper, they go ballistic, they're all over the place, and when the parents have no control whatsoever over them anymore. So and what they have found based on this research is that so it was inconclusive, but very leaning towards this conclusion. So the conclusion that they came up with interim was that AFCs may contribute significantly to some of the cases and even go through over that threshold. All right. So and AFCs can affect the brain and not just about ADHD. That's the whole point of this research. This is not just about ADHD. It's not just affecting the kids, but it can affect anyone out there. So these artificial colors, especially these artificial means synthetic. They're produced chemically or reproduced by the factories. These are not found in from the how nature intended. So like natural coloring, for instance, would be like indigo dye, kind of from the bunga telang for purple color, blue color, or like the red from henna, right? And all that. So those are natural coloring, but these are artificial coloring, which are synthetically produced and man-made, basically. All right. So AFCs can be a general problem to the health, a general public health problem, because it can impact the brain and the neurological function of the brain. So if you want to have a clearer mind, clearer brain function to ensure your brain functions optimally, I would advise to try to stay away and limit any exposure to these artificial food colors, which is a lot found in sweets. I mean, the most common is sweets, candy, and so forth, which is uh, designed to attract kids and young ones to want these things. So of course it is attractive, as you can see here in this picture, but it may not be good for you. Okay. So as mentioned in the study, it's although the evidence is inconclusive, but it is too substantial to dismiss. So I mean, like, if you are facing these kind of issues with your children or your loved ones, or maybe yourself even, then maybe try to eliminate altogether, avoid it altogether if, as best as you can, or try to find alternatives. For instance, there may be sweets or candy confectionery out there that uses natural coloring, so or no coloring at all whatsoever. So that would be better if they still need those kind of sweets and candy and so forth. All right. So I'm not going to be mentioning here about sugar, salts as much in this presentation, because I won't have time to go through that. But I think everyone here is well aware of the impacts of sugar as well in this regard, where and I think there has been research as well, which I haven't put in the slide, where if you give sugar or high levels of sugar or candy sweets to the kids, especially later at night, it is harder for them to sleep and go into a sleep pattern. And I think we face that personally as parents. I mean, I have 3 kids now, and so we definitely avoid. We don't give much candy or sweets ever to the kids, maybe once a week or once a month kind of thing. And definitely I would highly discourage from giving any sweets whatsoever during the evening, especially before going to bed. All right. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Okay, so I believe this one, I don't know, some of you may love this MSG. You put this, or the common term in the stores would be called Ajinomoto, Aji, right? Umami in the Japanese word, and they would use umami flavoring. Okay, so but MSG in particular in this one is a synthetically derived, although they market it as natural, but it is highly, highly processed. Okay, it may come from a starchy vegetable or tuber, but it is very highly processed. And I mean, if you use the actual vegetable itself, it's another thing. But if you use the chemically produced or a highly processed MSG product, the white powder, then it is a whole nother thing altogether. And for this, I have a personal experience. My wife is a MSG detector. Anytime we in the past, before COVID, if we go out to eat, and if we come to a restaurant that we want to try for the first time, we often need to ask, does this have MSG? Because if she does consume anything with MSG, for instance, she loves tom yum, and we will go our way to find the best spiciest tom yum because she loves spicy food. But unfortunately, all these soups often come with MSG. In Malaysia, at least, I'm not sure about Singapore, but at least in Malaysia, almost without a doubt, it will come with MSG, unless that restaurant has a sign outside, no MSG, no, 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 this. And if it's a more healthy, organic kind of food that they serve, then typically they won't use MSG. But more often than not, they would have MSG inside the soups. And so if she were to take these tom yum or these kind of soups and these MSG laden foods, what will happen is she would almost go into a faint spell. In the car, she would be already maybe passed out. And at home, if she was at home, like now, she would be like lying in bed and not be able to do anything. She would say that she won't be able to get up. So this is a neurological effect. MSG is kind of like scrambling our brains, scrambling our neurons, messing it all up. All the interaction, the neurological pathways are impacted and kind of like messed up altogether. So it and research has found that it can actually have an injury to the brain neurons. All right, so definitely, if much as you can, if you can afford it, definitely try to avoid it, limit it as much as possible. I know I'm a Maggie lover as well, mind you, but nowadays if I do want to enjoy it, it'll be like maybe once a month, or I've the last one I had was last year, so it's been a long while. Okay, so but if you can avoid it altogether, even better. All right, but if you were to take and unavoidable to take it, let's say you're on an instant ramen diet, for instance, and that's the only thing that you can have at the moment, fine, but be sure to take some vitamin C's, because according to this research, they have found that vitamin C's can actually lower the impact and the effects of this MSG. However, I think there needs to be more reading into this and write-ups about this, so I'll just take it as that based on this particular research. All right. All right, so let's look at the next one. Okay, I think who loves fish here? If you love fish, say I, or I don't know, put 111 over there in the chat. But yes, before this, I love fish. I mean, fish was my favorite animal protein. I love every kind of fish. I had like tuna almost every week or so, every other day at one point, and I love my fish. All right, I would prefer fish over chicken, over meats anytime at that time, because of course, like any one of you, we all believe that fish is the only source of omega-3s. But did you know that fish is also the main source of mercury? Okay, like it or not, nowadays in all the fish, regardless whether it's wild or farmed, they all have methyl mercury, and methyl mercury is found to be the worst kind of mercury toxicity or poisoning within food. All right, and this is definitely a neurotoxin, so it will mess up with the brain, will cause neurological dysfunction. It will kind of like mess up with things, and may lead to maybe headaches, Alzheimer disease, I think short-term memory loss, and so forth. All right, so a lot of disorders that can happen, and the effects of methylmercury. So mercury. And on top of that, mercury is also a cardiac toxin. That means it can affect your heart as well. So not only it will affect the brain, but it can impact your heart health. All right. So basically, this is based on a lot of findings from Dr. Michael Greger, who's the founder of Nutrition Facts. So basically, he does a lot of research, and he researches every published research out there, basically. So he does all these studies, and I forgot what is the term, but basically he looks over through a lot of research papers and kind of like consolidates it into another finding. And so in this one, in this particular paper that he found, they did analysis. Basically, if in the New York City, for instance, if pregnant mothers were to eat a lot of fish because of they want the omega-3s, of course it is good for the brain. So the improvement is like almost like having an extra 209,000 years in the children's life expectancy. But at the same time, with the mercury levels that's present in the fish, it would also diminish and damage up to 203,000 life years of these expectancy. So if you do the math, 209,000 plus, but then you minus off 203,000, how much positive outcome is there? Very little, if anything. All right. So I guess it's up to you. It's your choice. A fish does have good omega-3s, but it also nowadays contain methylmercury. And there's a lot of research nowadays. Farm fish has worse levels of methylmercury and other dioxins as well, which we'll be touching a little bit on later, which is another form of toxicity that also can be carcinogenic, which that means causes cancer. All right. So um, the I hope everyone can limit or reduce the amount of fish that they take, especially those from canned tuna and so forth, because they have other elements of toxicity from the aluminum cans and so forth. So there's a lot of other things that we need to consider. All right. At one point, they were the anti-vaccine group. I don't know if you've heard of it, but anti-vaccines movement was popular at one point, and one of the reasons why they would like to avoid these vaccines because they contain heavy metals. But did you know some of these vaccines, they have very, very little heavy metal, and if you were to compare the mercury content of these vaccines, one can of tuna is equivalent to 100 doses of these vaccines. So, I mean, look, what Dr. Gregor was pointing out here was that why were they trying to avoid that one measly vaccine if they were still consuming the tuna? All right. So, but if they avoided both, that's fine. But if they did not understand, and maybe many people still don't understand and appreciate the fact that our waters now, our oceans are all polluted because it comes from the factories and all that. It goes into the rivers and the streams, and then it goes, of course, where else? It goes all into the ocean, and all it accumulates. And this mercury and dioxins kind of like bioaccumulate, and it goes up the food chain, and that's why the fish would have it. And if we eat the fish, of course, we will consume it as well. So we want to try to avoid it altogether. All right. So, yep. And this methylmercury from the fish could also, they also have lead exposure as well, and is very similar to that lead toxicity. This is a actual research done in, I believe it was in Europe or Germany, and where they actually tested and they compared for mothers who actually consume fish and not did not consume any fish and had low level of mercury. They found that the people who had high levels of mercury in the moms would eventually have babies with smaller head circumference, uh, smaller brains. The cerebellum is the brain, and basically smaller brains. All right, and this is based on very, although they said high toxicity, but actually, if they ate fish or tuna cans regularly every week, it will be much higher. So maybe this could be a lot worse than what is reported in this finding. So it's very, very interesting. All right, so that's about mercury. Now we'll go into lead or plumbum or PB in the scientific periodic table. And apparently lead, I don't know if you know, in the past, our gasoline or in the petrol stations for our cars, they are also laced with lead. And that's why nowadays, but of course, science and researchers found that lead has a lot of toxicity and is very dangerous for the human health. Even the fumes would also cause that cognitive and neurological disorders. So that's why they removed all the lead from the petrol stations, and that's why we all have unleaded petroleum. But however, because of all that's happened before and all the factory waste that goes into the waters, this lead is still out there and still seeps in the soils. And so therefore, when chicken and animals where we raise in the agriculture, they feed off the soil, they feed off the grass and so forth, they consume this lead from the earth. Okay, so what happened here, they did some study and they kind of like tested if we did a broth, and this is using organic chicken, mind you, and it's not the farm chicken. Even this is organic chicken, which we feel that is already healthy. But what they found is even a chicken bone broth from meat, or even from skin and cartilage, they all contain high levels of lead, and it is almost 500% above the upper safety limits. Imagine that. I don't know about you, but nowadays, thankfully, me and my family were all plant-based now, so definitely we won't be eating any of these foods. But I mean, in the past, I love my nasi ayam, I love my chicken soup from the mama. All right. I don't. Maybe you like the bihun soup in the pasar malam, right? With the big tongs of ayam pencen soup in. But the longer that they stew it, more likely or not, they would need to. They would have a lot of toxicity. Pardon me, Terry. I do need to plug my computer for a bit. I'm not sure why it's not working. Let me hold on 1 second. Okay, I think I did it. Are you guys still here?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
we
all
are.
right, okay. I wasn't sure. So I'm a bit behind of time, so let me just try to rush things through, but there's a lot of ground to cover. Okay, so this is another study by a paper published in, oh, sorry, I didn't get the date. But basically what they found, so smoking cigarette smoke actually contains lead. I think that's a known toxin in cigarettes. And so they did the study where how they can mitigate the effects of lead and the smokers. And so if you do know that you may have some lead toxicity or may suspect that you have lead toxicity, you won't know for sure unless you do some tests. But if you do suspect you do have that, then maybe this can help, where they found that 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C can help to actually mitigate your plumbum levels in your blood. So definitely something to consider. So if you only take 200 milligrams of vitamin C, it won't help much. But if you take 1,000, it has shown to be effective. This means very significant. All right. All right, let's move on to carcinogens, things that toxins that cause cancer. And this is published by the WHO. And this is also an infographic by Cancer Research UK. But this is definitely all information from the World Health Organization. If you're not familiar, WHO is a body, an agency under the United Nations. They do a lot of research and surveys as well. And this is an independent, this is the most independent that you can get, where WHO should not be any biased to any food industry or any other lobbyists. So what they have found is they have categorized processed meats to be a group 1 carcinogen. What that means, group 1 is it can definitely cause cancer. All right. Group 2A, 2B can 50-50 chance, has a chance. So if you can avoid, even better. Definitely you won't have that chance. But if you still consume it, it's not conclusive. If what research or academia says conclusive, it needs to be statistically significant. All right, with a margin error of 0.05%. I think Dr. Azlinda can correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I mean, like it's less. The probability is less, but this one, class 1 or group 1, is a definite. All right, is more likely than not. All right, so if I were you, I would try to avoid as much as you can all these processed meats. What processed meats mean? They are cured, or they're salted, or they're prepared in another way, kind of like bacon, smoked beef, salami, sausages, even burgers, and so forth. So all these are processed meats, and so they are categorized under group 1 carcinogen. So as much as you can, I would say avoid it altogether. Avoid it altogether. Don't take it anymore. If you do want to enjoy it once in a while, once, when I mean once in a while, once a month, once a year, maybe then okay. All right. But if you've been living on this earth more than 40 years, I think it's time to give your body a break and try to avoid it altogether. All right. Even red meats, pork, beef, lamb, all the four-legged animals, all these are red meats, and these are also classed in the category 2. So if you do not want to be have any chance of it, I would say avoid it altogether. Actually, chicken and fish, chicken does have its other problems as well, which I unfortunately have no time to cover here today. But definitely, I think everyone has heard about the antibiotics and antibodies that go into chicken and the growth hormones. Nowadays, chicken naturally in the wild would take about six months to grow to a full size bird. But nowadays, do you know how long they take to grow in the farms? Less than 6 weeks. Probably faster nowadays, but I'm not sure. But yeah, 6 weeks, 6 months to 6 weeks. Do you think that's natural? I don't know about you, but definitely my family is no longer eating any chicken whatsoever. Okay, not to mention the eggs. All right, so there's another compound and toxin that we need to be aware of as well, which is called dioxins. Okay, so you may hear this a lot later on. Dioxins, DLCs, PCBs, all these are kind of like the same family, which is chemicals, man-made chemicals, which is used for other things. I mean, we use it in electrical components, we use it in batteries, we use it in gadgets, We use it in the large energy industry, in transformers and the transmission grids and whatnot. All right. And all these dioxins and whatnot, they can cause cancer as well. They can also cause cardiovascular disease and increase diabetes. And this is a statement by the Food and Drug Administration from the US. All right. Health effects include they are categorized under the dirty dozen, dangerous POP, persistent organic pollutants. They can uh, they can affect your reproductive organs. So if you are trying to conceive a baby and so forth, so maybe this is one form of a problem that may be apparent, maybe not just from the foods, but maybe from the environment. It can damage your immune system. It can interfere with your hormone if your hormones all out of whack. If you have no other explanation for it, then maybe it can be a toxicity issue, and definitely it can cause cancer. And where does all these toxins like to stay? They like to stay in fats. Okay, whenever we have fats, it will stay there and lodge there. That's why it will also kind of like deposit in our fatty tissues and our liver. That's where all the detoxing happens. All right, because liver is the primary organ that is working to cleansing and detoxing our body, especially in the fat sense. All right, and that if it goes into fats, then of course when we eat fatty foods like animal proteins like chicken, beef, eggs, dairy, chicken and pork and so forth, they would of course, if they are exposed to all these toxins, then we are consuming those toxins as well. All right. Dioxins and PCBs, as I mentioned. So this is a study where they analyze all these different kind of foods, and the highest toxins of dioxins and PCBs is found in fish, as I mentioned earlier. It's not just the mercury; it's also these PCBs and dioxins very high. If you see here, butter is very apparent because of the dairy. Butter is made from milk, dairy milk, so is cheese. Then we have here. Ice cream as well made from milk. As you can see, all the animal proteins are also listed here, which contain all these PCBs and dioxins. But if you notice the plant-based sauces, the vegan diet, which are primarily whole fruits and vegetables, hardly have any of these PCBs, dioxins. So if you want to be really, really safe for you and your family, and you want to be safeguarded from all these toxins, that I would highly recommend to go on a plant-based diet and leave all the animal proteins altogether. But if you're not capable of doing that, at least limit it to the very least, maybe having only beef or chicken once a week or once a month if you can. And the more that you limit, the better for your health and well-being. All right. Although I said that, I mean, fruits and veggies are also still prone to other forms of toxicity. This is very apparent is pesticides and herbicides with the modern agriculture practices that happens nowadays. We cannot go without pesticides and herbicides, so they're sprayed all over. So if you're consuming a fruit that you eat with the skin, then try to peel off the skin. That's the surefire way you won't be exposed to this anymore. But if you need to eat that leaf, like green vegetable, there's no skin to peel, right? I mean, the kale, the spinach, and so forth. So definitely we need to wash it off. And toxins, the pesticides and herbicides. But there are also known solutions out there that can help to remove all these bad things all over our fruits and vegetables. And one in particular, dish drops, you can ask your friend who invited you here, which is can be used also not just to wash your dishes, but also to wash your fruits and vegetables. So if you bought grapes, right, they're like white in color. Once you dip this in the dish drop solution, it'll turn into the natural color of the grape, either purple, black, or green, and it will look much nicer. It will taste much nicer, and you can really feel the difference. All right, so I do encourage to check that out as well. All right. Other toxins, just quickly here, deep fried foods, and why the wellness industry says to reduce your deep fried foods is because when you deep fry starches, it is carcinogenic, which means it can lead to cancer. There has been a Harvard study that has been shown if you give French fries to a girl every single week, it can increase breast cancer to that girl up to 27%. All right. So I don't know about you, but I find that very alarming. So as much as I can, I will try to minimize or reduce the intake of these French fries and highly deep fried foods. I don't think it matters. I mean, it is worse if it is oil deep fried. Air fried, I haven't found a study yet whether it has the same effect or not. But if you are concerned, then maybe reduce the higher temperature frying. All right, so that's what we want to do. All right, more importantly is if you barbecue and you have all these black bits, you need to peel them off. If not, you're only introducing more carcinogens that will be harmful to your bodies and can cause cancer. All right, so we learned about all the toxins, all the things that can affect our brain, affect our body, and can lead to cancer. How do we actually remove it? All right, I think first we need to learn about, very quickly, read up more about this. I won't have time to go through it, but we have five main organs that is responsible to help to detoxify our body, mainly liver, which does the fat part of it, and you want to avoid fatty liver. And to help to strengthen our organs, I will also advise a few things. So milk thistle is known and shown to help to improve the functionality of the liver, so you can try that out. Kidneys also is very important for detoxing, and very important to drink purified water without all the contaminants. You want to find a good water treatment system that will remove all the impurities, all the toxins, all the dioxins, PCBs, and all that. And we want to reduce our salt intake, because if we increase salt or we have a lot of high sodium intake in our foods, then we will only damage our kidneys even further. Digestive system, I think we've heard a lot about this before, but definitely you want to introduce a good, healthy microbiome. And to do that, you increase good probiotics and prebiotics. You do that by eating more whole foods, plant-based, and increase the prebiotics. And if you need it further help, then you can find probiotics off the counter as well. All right, skin, of course, it can also help with the detox process, and through the sweats and so forth. Of course, a lot of water is needed to ensure that the flushing and proper flushing goes through our system as well. And lungs also very important, and not in particular about food, but more of the environment and so forth. So we want to avoid pollution, avoid smoking or eliminate smoking altogether. We probably invest in the air treatment system to help, especially since now we're indoors. Indoor air can be also toxic as well. So if you're in an environment which is polluted, definitely consider investing in an air treatment system as well. Garlic and other anti-inflammatory herbals like turmeric and so forth can also improve the airways and how we breathe, improve there as well. All right, sleep, I can't emphasize enough, very important to actually reset your body, and your body kind of like goes through the detoxing mode at night. So it's very important, and this is from traditional Chinese medicine. The circadian rhythm found that 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. is the most optimal period for detox, especially that's when the liver is most active. So if you have night shifts, I would try to encourage to reverse and find another job, maybe even if you are facing certain issues that you cannot so because your body cannot detox. All right. All right, and like I mentioned before, drinking water is very important. Clean drinking water is very important as well. I wouldn't advise RO water though, because it has depleted any minerals whatsoever. Do invest in a very good purifying water system, and do drink enough. Malaysians don't drink enough water either, based on all the people that I've helped through the way in terms of wellness. We found that Malaysians in general, at least my clients, have drank on average drink less than 1 liter per day. I don't know about you, but you need to measure the amount of water that you drink. You probably need to invest in a bottled water like this, 500 mils or 1 liter, and do the measurement. Keep a log so you can note it for yourself and do your best to increase it along the way. All right. Other ways to detox, and these are backed up by some literature as well. Unfortunately, I won't be able to publish it here. So onions, garlic, broccoli also helps to excrete heavy metals like cadmium. Chlorella has shown to have some promise. This is from algae. Cilantro, down soup. So if you are drinking those animal soups anyway, put a lot of cilantro down soup to counteract and help. Best of course is to eliminate all those animal soups and bone broths altogether, and of course eat a more fruits and veggies, whole foods, all across the spectrum of the rainbow that will help to detoxify. If you really want to increase your help your body to further detox faster and work better and more efficiently, maybe also consider supplementing. So this particular brand, maybe some of you have never heard of. Neutralite is a brand that me and my wife and my family have been using for more than 15 years now, and we trust this brand. They have been around in the market for more than 80 years. They have their own organic farms as well. They combine best of nature and the best of science. But eventually, what you need to look out for is a good multivitamin with strong phytonutrients for detoxification. Milk thistle supports the liver. BioC, as I mentioned before, helps with the MSG levels. Garlic for anti-inflammatory, probiotics, and fiber, and so forth. So do check with your friend who brought you here for more information on that. Neutralite also has their own fish oils. In particular, I just want to highlight this omega fish oil from Neutralite. Goes through a lot of checks and balances. So fish oils in general, you want to be cautious. You want to understand how they go through their processing to deliver that fish oil to you. So if you were to take a fish oil, make sure they are transparent, how they ensure the purity of the oils, and make sure they check with all the contaminants. So in this case, Neutralite, they make sure they remove all the harmful contaminants, heavy metals, dioxins, PCBs, and other toxins. They have a whole stringent process and checks to ensure the product is pure and does not contain all these harmful effects to our bodies. So if you were to look for any brand, I would highly suggest and recommend Neutralite, but you can check with your friend or do your own research on this as well. All right, with that, thank you very much. I have come to the end of the presentation. So sorry for taking up extended amount of time, but I pass it back to Terry now.
Thank you, Faisal. That was that was really informative and very, very good. I think all of us probably scared us all to death as well, you know.
That's the whole point. But
um,
yeah, I mean, like I guess you just need to do your own research and find out for yourself. You know your own body. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So if you've got questions, I know we're running out of time, but I think let's just give a couple of minutes for questions, maybe 5 minutes. There was one question by Noor Hafiza, and she said, what about local sea fish compared to, what you were talking about? What do you think of local sea fish?
Yes, I knew that question would come up. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the research for the local market because Malaysians does not do enough research for this. For the food industry in general. But if you know better than me, please direct me to the right place because I haven't found it much either on this topic. However, I think if we understand about ocean waters and so forth, I mean, like if they're in the ocean, they can eventually permeate to our waters as well. But I do hear stories and rumors that I mean our waters are one of the most toxic waters in the world as well. Especially if you hear about oil spillages, oil dumps by factories. I mean, if it happens to our Shabas water locally, I'm not surprised if it happens in the ocean waters as well. All right, and that is only the news that we hear of. Imagine all the news that we cannot hear and don't know of. So it's for you to decide and your own choice what you do. Yeah.
We also had a friend who is a Thai businessman, and their family business was fish in the fishing industry. They
Oh,
owned
okay.
fishing
I'm
boats.
sorry if I hurt anybody's feelings. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and you know what they said? What he said to us? What Apisat said to us? He said that the best fish from our region don't come to Malaysia because they are licensed. They're given license to fish
Export
for
out. Yeah,
export.
I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think even
So
the
that's
Sabah king crabs, you've heard of those
yes,
giant crabs in Sabah?
yes,
They don't
yes.
they don't sell them here. They sell it to Hong Kong and China where the big buyers are.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so Wai Lin had a question.
Sure.
Can you tell us what you eat 3 meals a day?
All right, so
Can you share what you eat?
me and
Okay.
my family, we've been plant-based for the past at least myself, I've been for the past couple of years. Aina have been more than 5 years now. And so for breakfast, the typical breakfast for us is mainly fruits, three types of fruits. So I would shop for fruits like 100, 200 ringgit worth of fruits every week. And that's the kind of fruits in the variety. So our breakfast is normally three variety of fruits, and I also add on oatmeal as well. So I make sure I have oatmeal, and I use I put plant protein as well, or soy milk, and put some cinnamon and some raisins, some nuts, and I change the fruits as whatever I have in the house. So that's for my breakfast normally. Typically, our lunch is typically it's just the Malaysian food, but it's just without the chicken or meat lah. I think the question here is, where do I get my protein, right? I think that's the question.
Mm.
The 3 meals a day on a plant-based diet, where do we get our proteins? Actually, our protein is everywhere. Protein is all in the fruits and vegetables as well, but not in the quantities, I guess, in the quantities that we know of. But because we eat all these grains, all these, even rice, a cup of rice have 4 grams of protein. Did you know? Yeah, you might not know, but brown rice would be better. I mean, the more wild rice or brown rice would be higher levels of protein. Quinoa, tofu is also equivalent, same protein as chicken, a serving of chicken and a serving of meat. So, I mean, we have tofu, legumes like chickpeas, beans, mushrooms, all these are protein rich as well. And so you can definitely get enough protein from there as well. But if you feel that you still not enough protein from the plant-based sources, then you can top it up with a plant protein supplement. For instance, like the all plant protein powder has a combination of soy, wheat, and pea. So it definitely can top up with that. So lunch and dinner pretty much the same. Yeah, and yes, we eat a lot of rice. So the good thing about plant-based diets, you don't need to count the calories and so forth, but you need to eat whole foods. You don't eat all those breads, not as much pizza, all the dough stuff, reduced as well. Yep,
Okay, let's take two more questions.
sure.
One is, can you explain the blood-brain? I think Ivy had that question, the
The blood what?
blood-brain barrier.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Ivy. I also just encountered that phrase recently. I unfortunately I won't be able to answer that beyond my realm of knowledge. But if Dr. Azinda can comment, maybe she can share a little bit later. Sorry about that. So I'll admit I haven't read up on that term exactly.
Okay, so more research needs to be
Yeah.
done. And Elvin's question is, where is it medically supported that those that take plant-based diet will live longer or will be healthier? Yeah, but that's
Yes, yes, I don't have the research right now on me, but you can check out. I do love this website called nutritionfacts.org by
mm,
Dr. Michael Greger. And another one that I would highly recommend is to look for Dr. Neil Barnard.
yeah.
He's from PCRM. So they are advocates of plant-based diets. And yes, there has been a lot of research that has been shown that it can improve longevity, especially with it doesn't need to be 100% either. So, for instance, like the people in Okinawa in Japan, where there is well known to be longer life expectancy, there is like a Mediterranean diet, the Asian style. So they still eat some fish now and then, but it's now and then, So it's maybe once a week or a couple of times a week, but very, very less than what we do now. Nowadays, we eat animal proteins every single meal. But if you can reduce it altogether, there has been some studies that has been shown that better quality of life, less lifestyle diseases, definitely, because whole foods, plant-based in particular, not just vegan, but whole food plant-based, where the foods are still in the natural form, they have shown to be effective in reversing heart disease, reversing diabetes, and improving the other health factors as well. So you can look it up. Yeah, there's a lot of documentaries on Netflix, and some of them are on YouTube as well. You can check it out, and you can find out more there.
Okay, just a quick question. So now that you're on plant-based, Faisal, what do you do for omega-3?
Omega 3, okay. Honestly, yes, I still take the Nutrilite Omega fish supplement
Mhm.
as well on occasion, but we also source for algae based supplement. I think the latest Nutrilite product in particular, if you're on the Nutrilite brand, there's the gummies,
The
which are
DHA
vegan
gummies.
as
Yeah,
well. So if you notice,
yeah.
the source of the gummies from Nutrilite is actually from algae.
Okay.
So the algae source vitamins as well, if you're looking for supplementation. But if you want to increase it from a whole food plant based, you go for like flaxseed. Avocados also have omega 3, flaxseed, chia seeds. All right. But if you prepare all this, make sure you just read a little bit. So, flaxseed, best if you want to have the whole benefits of omega-3s, you need to grind a little bit. Chia seed, you need to make sure they're developed, kembang, so then you can gain the omega-3s better. Yeah, but in our plants kingdom, there's actually omega-3s everywhere. And because in a plant-based diet, we're reducing our omega-6s at the same time significantly, especially if we reduce the oils, then we won't have the problem of the cholesterol levels as well. So because we always advocate high omega-3s because we want to counter the high omega-6s as well. But when we also reduce the omega-6s and we have a moderate levels of omega-3s, the ratios will be better as well. So our cholesterol levels will be all intact.
Okay. I
Hope that
know,
answers.
yeah, I know we can go all day with this because
Yes,
it's
yes.
such a fascinating subject, yeah, it's such a fascinating subject. Alvin, I just wanted to mention, I can't remember the name of that documentary as well, but if you go to Netflix and you look for Knives Over Forks, and then you'll be able to find like a whole row of other documentaries that are related.
Yeah, Knife Over Fox,
and
Cowspiracy, What the Health.
yeah, so you'll be
they
able
all
to
touch
find
on
that one
this.
that
Yeah.
Noraini is talking about. Yeah.
If you like the Hollywood style, go check out Game Changers. Yeah, that's kind of
That's the
exciting.
one, Game
Yeah.
Changers.
Game
Sorry,
Changers,
Elvin,
yeah.
that's the one that Noraini is talking about, Game Changers. Okay. So thank you all for staying. It's amazing to me that, people keep staying on no matter how long we stretch this, but we don't want to hold you. Go take your, lunch and, have a good day at work. We hope that we've given you enough information for you to do your research and for you to make the choices in how you eat and in what you eat. So look forward to seeing you here again next week. I'm just trying to figure out what the topic is for next week again. Next week, we'll be talking about, managing cholesterol by Dr. Aslinda. So, it's going to be a really good topic. Dr. Aslinda has so much experience with that. So we'll hope to see you again next week. Okay,
All right.
goodbye.
Thank you very much,
and
Terry.
have a
And
great
thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Faisal.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
Faiza. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Faisal.
Thanks,
Thank
Terry.
you,
Thanks,
Terry.
Faisal.
Bye bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Terry.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you,
Thanks,
Faisal.
everyone.
Thank you, Nazli.
Thank you,
Bye.
Terry. Thank you, Faisa.
Thank you, Noor.
Welcome.